For the task 10, we'll be using the user email and the user password that we decoded to human readable string. From the previous methods, we are going to use it to search for the user in the database. Thus, the name of these methods, user object from credentials. So if we find the user for this method, we return the user object, else we are going to return none. So the first check here is to return none if the user is none of the user email is not a string. So we say if not user email, or if the user email is not an instance of a string, it is not an instance of a string, we are going to return none. And then we have to do the same thing for the user password. So I'll just copy this here and modify it. That is user pwd. And then we are going to return none if the database, or in this case is a file, if it doesn't contain any user interface with the email. And we should use the class method search of the user to look up the list of users based on the email. So if we check the not here models, if we check the user and we look for the search method of the user, valid display, okay, could be inheriting from the base. Let's see, okay, search. So this, you see that the search method is going to take attributes, which is a dictionary, and it's going to, it has some checks put in there. It's going to look through the items in the dictionary, and then it's going to check for it in this other dictionary where we have all of the instances of the class, or let's say this is our database. Then it's going, if it's found, it's going to return the values. So let's go back to basic auth. So we are going to enclose it in a try except. Okay, let's finish here first. So we are going to say users. So believe we've already imported these, have we? Okay, let's import user from API that, let me see where it is. So this should be in the models. Okay, so should be from models dot user, import user. So I hope I did it correctly. So we are going to use, now we've imported user, we are going to use the search method, and then we are going to pass in attributes because it's expecting an attribute which should be a dictionary, then we pass in email, and then the user email. So the exception, let's say the exception is going to be key error. If there's a key error, we return. Maybe if there's any other error, we are going to return also. And then here we are told to return none if the user password is not the password of the user interface found, and we must use the method is valid password of the user class. So if we go back to the model, inside the model we go to the user, and is valid method of this user class. It takes in password and check if password is none or type of password is string, and then it compares. So here you compares the password we passed into with the password of in the database or the file. So we go here and we are going to first say if user was not found after this search here. If user was not found, we are going to return none, and then so we are going to loop through, because it's possible that the okay, I don't know how this is done. Maybe a user with like two users can have maybe the same password or something. I don't know. Let's say this is the password. Maybe two different users have the same password. Then, because I'm guessing that yeah, there's no check for that. So it's possible that this could return different users with the same email. So what I'm going to do is to loop through the users. I'm thinking that this should be users. So I'll loop through it for user in users, and then now we are going to use the is valid password to check, to pass in this password and check if it's valid, if there is a user that is using that password. And if there is any user that is using that password, we are going to return that very user, right? User period. So if there's a user like this that is using this password, we are going to return the user. And if any other thing, we will just return none. So let's just go ahead and test this. I'll go down here and I'll pull this up. So I guess I have to put this. Also, I forgot to mention something. If FileCoaster is giving you errors about how long this line is, you can use this, I don't know what it's called, no car, no QA, to shut it up. Tell it stop talking to me. Then back here, we've generated an email using UUID, okay, which is strange, and then the password, then an instance of the user, then we set the user.email to this one, first name, etc. And then we are printing the user, and then we're saving it. And then this is where we are actually testing the basic auth, blah blah. Let's see. So instead of having these gaming issues, what I'm going to do is going to come here. I'm going to create another file, and I call it task. What task is this? 10, 11. I think it's 11. Okay, let's say 10 dot py. I'll open it here and I paste all this here. So instead of running basic auth.py, I'm going to run this one. So basic auth in line 8. Come on, this cannot be happening. So I say API dot v1 dot auth. I think this should do. So let's run this again. Okay, there you have it. Import issues. For the task 11, we are going to be using all the methods that we have created to complete a basic authentication for a given user by modifying this current user method of the parent class. You know that this current user method is already in the parent class of us, because we know this the user method, the basic auth inherited from this auth class. And then there's this current user method that is just returning none. So we overload it, we modify it to use it to return the user object after the basic authentication. That is, we are going to be using the 5 methods that we implemented to process authorization header and use user credentials to authenticate a user. So the first one we are going to use is the authorization header method. So we are going to use the authorization header to process the request, and this authorization header is here because is the basic auth inherited this from the auth class. So we know that the auth class in the root, I think it is in the before request. We pass the request, then the request header, it checks for this authorization keyword. If it's in the request header, is going to return this, something that looks like this part of it, because it's checking for this key, which is authorization, and now it grabs the value of this authorization, which is just this part. And then That's the first thing we are going to do for this current user method. So I'm going to create a variable called auth header, and then we are going to use the authorization header method, and then we pass in the request, which when we do this is going to, just like I said, it's going to return the value of the authorization, which is this. And then this value of authorization, we are going to use the next method, which is the extract base64 authorization method, to be able to split this by the space. Remember how when we did it, to hold on to the base64 value of it. So I'm going to call this one, say, b64 string, and then we are going to call self dot extract authorization, and then we're going to pass in the auth header. And when we pass in this auth header, this, which is something that looks like this, is going to split it by the space, and then it's going to return this. So this base64 string is going to be of this value. And then the next is we are going to use the decode base64 to decode this value, this base64 value, to a human readable string. So I'm going to say decoded b64 string. We are going to call self dot, what's it called? It should be decoded self dot, should be this. And then we are going to pass in the b64 string, which is going to decode this string into a human readable string that consists of the user email separated by a delimiter, which is a colon, and then the password. And then the next one is we are going to extract the user credentials um, by splitting this decoded string by the delimiter, and returning the user email and the user password. So I'm going to say, remember that the extract user credentials is going to return a tuple, which could be none, a tuple of none, or a tuple of email, user email, and then user password. So we say extract credentials, and then we are going to pass in the decoded base64 string, which we know is the user email and the password separated by a delimiter. Here we are splitting it, and then both is going, this method is going to return a tuple of email and password, or a tuple of none. And then finally we are going to have to check these email and password that are returned um, and call the user object method from credentials. That's the last one we just created, which is supposed to, this very one supposed to go to the database or the file where we are saving the users, and then search for the email. If it's found, the cross checks the password, and then return the user if it matches. So we are going to say user is equal to self dot user object credentials. So you are going to pass in the email, the user email, and then password. And then if this was successful, it's going to return the user, and then we return the user. So because of some import issues, I'm not going to be running this on straight here. Honestly, I do not have the strength to be dealing with imports. So in the In the root, this is the task 11. I just added the whole thing there, which is what we are going to be testing. So see that here we have an user email, password, and then instance of the user, and then we are setting the email to this email, the password to this password, and then we are calling the display method of the user, and we're printing the ID at the same time. And then after that we save the user, and then we are converting the email and the password. Okay, we are setting a credential that has a user followed by a delimiter and then the password, and then we are converting it to a base 64 decoded string. So let's run this. My task is task 11.py. So we see that this is the new user, and then after changing this to base 64, this is what we got. And then the next thing is we are going to test it by running the server. Let me copy this from here and paste it here. Split this into two, and we are going to test. Yeah, I'm going to change this to localhost. And we are getting okay. Again, we are going to try the users. We're getting unauthorized, and we are going to try passing. We're going to try the user's endpoint, but with an authorization header, like with the fake one. Okay, my bad. Change this to localhost, and we are getting forbidden, which is right because we don't have the right authorization. It should be basic followed by a space and then the base 64. And then again we are going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to make it almost correct by passing basic, but this test is not base 64, so we are also going to get forbidden. And then finally we are going to pass the correct base 64 string, that is this one we generated there, and we are going to paste it here. Okay, I think I did too much. Let's do this again. Come on. So this should be TGH. So you see that now that we have the correct base 64, we are able to have the email, first name, and so on. That is our basic authentication is correct.